All right, so we are going to take this quadratic and we want to write it in vertex form. So the current form we are in is standard form. So y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That's the current form we're in. Our goal is to get that and change over to vertex form, which is ax minus h squared plus k. So we want to go from standard form to vertex form. So some kind of similarities and things to point out here is I went from having an x squared and an x just to an x inside a parentheses. So I went from x squared and x to inside parentheses. The other time that happens is when we complete the square. So if you ever want to take something from standard form to vertex form with quadratics, what we're essentially going to be doing is completing the square. So the only difference here is between this and completing the square is instead of having this set equal to 0, we actually have a y there. But the entire process is pretty much very, very similar. So the first thing I always want to do is I'm completing the square, I isolated the x squared and the x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides. So that is going to give us y minus 18 equals x squared minus 12x, and then we're going to go from there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to look for how can I complete the square over here. So we're going to go through the same process with completing the square of doing b divided by 2 and square it. So I'm going to have negative 12 divided by 2 squared. Negative 12 divided by 2 is you're going to get negative 6. Still need to square it. Negative 6 squared, I get 36. So we're still going through the same process of completing the square. So if you recall from completing the square, once we did b divided by 2 squared, we took that and we added it to the side we would like to factor. So I'm going to add 36 to the right side of the equal sign. Remember, whenever you add and subtract, multiply, divide one side, you have to do it to the other. So since I added 36 to the right side, I'm also going to add 36 to the left side so I can stay balanced here. So my new line, I'm going to have y minus 18 plus 36. So I need to do negative 18 plus 36. Negative 18 plus 36. So I'm going to get positive 18 there. On the right side, I still have this x squared minus 12x plus 36. So it doesn't look like it, but I'm getting a lot closer to getting a vertex form. So as we completed the square, once we added that 36, we wanted to factor this. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to look for two numbers that if I multiply them, I get positive 36. But if I add them together, I get negative 2. Two numbers that... Did I say that? Negative 12. Two numbers that multiply to 36, but when I add them, I get negative 12. So if I do x minus 6 and x minus 6, negative 6 and negative 6, if you multiply them together, you get 36. If you add those numbers together, you get negative 12. But since these are the same factors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it as x minus 6 squared. On the left side, I still have that y plus 18. So kind of comparing here, I went from standard form down to this point. I'm trying to get to vertex form, so I need a parentheses squared, which is what I have. The only remaining step is we like to have our y all alone when we're writing these equations. So right now I have this y plus 18. I would like to get y all alone, so I'm going to subtract 18. Again, if I do it to one side, I'm going to do it to the other side. So what we'll be left with here is y equals x minus 6 squared minus 18. Now if you look at that and compare it to our vertex form, that is exactly what we wanted. This is vertex form. So if you want to take it a step further and you wanted to say, well, what is the vertex of this? Just remember the vertex is always h and k. So h and k. So our vertex there, if you wanted it, is going to be positive 6 and negative 18.